Now I'm recording.
Okay, now you're recording. All right.
Yes.
You ready, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
Ready.
Oh, God.
Welcome, everybody, to Random Encounter, the RPG Fan podcast. Had a little bit of a hiatus lately because, I had to beat everybody down in StarCraft 2, so we got it all out of our systems. So, Zach, what happened?
Therefore,
What happened?
lose.
Oh yeah, I mean you're better than me, Rob. Congratulations.
I beat you, and I beat Steven, but Steven's not here today, so, much love to him. So no more StarCraft 2 discussion. We're here to talk about RPGs. And joining me today, we have...
Dennis, turn-based dude on the boards.
Zach
Neal, Dincrest on the boards.
and Zach super flat on the boards.
Awesome. Again, I am Pale Ravi on the boards, your resident hater. Today, we got lots and lots of games to talk about. We have a little bit of a discussion on control/AI in battle systems. That leads into some of the games that we're playing. We have a lot of news to talk about from Gamescom, including I Was Right, a CG trailer for Dragon Age 2. Who'd have thought? Did we actually think we were going to see actual gameplay? No. Now, to round out the episode tonight, I have to get some things off my chest. I've been having a horrible customer service experience with Sony getting my PlayStation 3 repaired. Again, it doesn't really fit in with what we talk about on the show normally, so we're going to save that for the very end. We're going to tell you guys when we're going into it. If you don't want to hear about it, that's perfectly fine, but just as a consumer report to you guys, just the kind of thing that I'm going through right now with trying to get my PlayStation 3 serviced. So, without further ado, I think we should go to, well, what did we do in the show notes? We said Zach was going to talk about NieR.
NieR.
So go ahead. Go ahead, Zach.
NieR,
Tell us
NieR.
about NieR.
Yeah. I bought it on the eBays as per Pat Gann's recommendation. Check out his review on the site. It's pretty glowing review for the most part. And I've really been enjoying it so far. I'm, let's say, 6-ish hours in. Honestly not too far. Haven't gotten to, I think there's like a halfway point that, like you can later restart your game from or something. But I haven't gotten that far yet, I don't think. But it's good. It's for those of you who are unfamiliar with NieR, it's an action RPG from Cavia, who are the guys who did, was it Drakengard?
Yeah.
Drakengard.
I think that's right.
And Dragon Dragoon or something like that.
Dragon Dragoon was Drakengard in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
So they made those games. It plays almost like a Zelda meets God of War sort of deal, where you have
Darkstalkers.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's got like the big open world. It's got some dungeon crawling, although the dungeons aren't quite as involved and it's not as blatant a ripoff as Darkstalkers. But I've been really enjoying the game. The story is really kind of intriguing, and I'm interested to see where they go with it. The graphics are not great, but there's something that I feel like we've lost in this day and age with all the Unreal Engine 3 just waxy skin and all that. And it's gotten better, but it's almost like a high res, let's say, like late PS2 era game, which you could say that's like really bad on it. You could say that's okay, but I think the simplicity and the bleakness of the world is kind of well played out, even if it's perhaps accidental, just for not having the same quality visuals. And the sound is phenomenal. The soundtrack is just like some of the most amazing music I've heard in video games in a long time.
Yeah, the
really,
soundtrack,
really good stuff.
Yeah, what I saw from the soundtrack was definitely good, but I agree with Zach's assessment. That is a fugly game. Like I was looking at it and I was like, wow, this kind of looks worse than God of War 1. Like this is.
I mean, that's the thing is like it's high res and the textures are sometimes less than stellar, often less than stellar, but the character models are pretty okay. And I mean, it's really not the sort of thing that will detract from your gameplay experience. And I mean, on the good side, it runs at, I think, close to 60 frames most of the time. And considering there's very little detail in the world, there's not much popping. So, you know, I mean, that's one of my pet peeves. I hate popping so much.
Now, if I remember correctly, just to give the listeners a little something to chew on, they'd made a lot of changes to the story from the Japanese to American version. I know that, like, in the Japanese game, I think it's you're trying to save your sister, if I'm correct.
Well, in Japan there were two versions, NieR Replicant and NieR Gestalt. NieR Replicant is the PS3 version, and you were playing, let's say, a younger version of the main character trying to save your sister, and it looked very, I don't know, anime almost. You know, I mean, it has the same kind of rendering style, but you know, the character designs were a little bit skewed for a you know, whatever, I'm reluctant to say like Japanese audience, but you know, it did outsell the Xbox 360 version 2-1. And then NieR Gestalt is what we got, which is known as NieR here, and that's the, you know, like the same version as, you know, what we have. But I think it follows the same story, you know, just with your sister instead of your daughter.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And now, was Gestalt only available on the Xbox 360? Did I hear that right?
In Japan, I'm not actually sure, because, you know, like they have the PS3 version for America, which is, you know, NieR Gestalt. Gestalt's such a great word, but I'm not 100% sure on that. You know, if you'd have to ask me 4 months ago when it came out to flip.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, I'd recommend it. You know, I got it for, let's say, $30 on eBay, and I think that's a really solid price for the game. You know, like granted, I haven't played through it, so, you know, I'm already enjoying it. But yeah,
that's cool. Yeah,
that's
kind
cool.
of that's cool to hear. Because, you know, like with the first Drakengard game, you know, I like the atmosphere and everything, and even the storyline, but I thought that the gameplay was just really repetitive. It was okay. It was like cutscene, aerial mission, ground mission, and they all just pretty much played the same.
I mean, that's one of the things that I really like about the game, is that, you know, I've played through, let's say a third to close to a half, and I've gone through 3-ish dungeons. The first one is fairly straightforward, but then the second one, you get kind of portions which are played almost like a twin stick shooter, where you're controlling which direction you're like shooting out, like little blasts of energy with, you know, the right stick. And then there's the dungeon after that is like a series of trials, so you have to try to destroy this pink cube without getting hit by these other cubes shooting energy balls, and you can't, like, let's say, swing your sword, or you can't run, or you can't dodge. And so there's you know, a bunch of interesting gameplay in there. At the same time, there's a lot of fetch quests. You know, and those aren't necessary. They're certainly far from necessary.
Oh, okay.
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, the completionist in me would probably do it nonetheless.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just glad to hear there's like good, decent variety in the gameplay.
It's almost surprising, just because, you know, like you get, you know, I was really taken aback that there was, you know, like this twin stick shooter in my game, or that there was, you know, the puzzles were a bit more, you know, straightforward, but the boss design has been fairly, you know, not super exciting, but it's been fairly inspired. And, you know, yeah, so I mean, I'd recommend it. Definitely check out Pat's review, because I'm very much in line with what he says so far.
All right. Just to keep the ball rolling, in case we're done talking about NieR, why don't we move on to Dennis? It wouldn't be a show if we didn't mention Mass Effect 2, and I know you've still been playing that, so tell us what you've been doing, Dennis.
Okay, I'll just keep it pretty short, because I know you guys have been hearing it to death over and over. I like it a lot more than I do, even though I'm not big on the gameplay, only because I'm just not a big fan of shooters in general, and it just feels like, yeah, what's there to work on? What's the point of killing all these grunts if I'm not even getting experience off them? That's my mindset on it. I would rather just spend hours just talking to the characters and everything, rather than just get on the action, but that's just me. But it just feels like, yeah, one big introduction, then like, I'm almost near the big final mission. Just still got some 3 recruits to go and doing the loyalty quests, but that's about it. Other than that, yeah, I also picked up NieR recently. I'll just keep that short. It's like, the reason I got it was a bit of Pat's praise about it, and then there's the music. I really, really like the soundtrack. That just blew my mind. Whereas a lot of just soundtracks in general just gets a little too ambient and just feels like it doesn't carry over the experience outside the game. Where I just like to listen or the tunes stick with me. You know what I mean?
Can I actually stop you for a second? Because that's really interesting. You said that you're not really a fan of the ambient music because we've had a lot of footage come out of Diablo 3. And that's like, the game I'm focused on. I really don't like the fact that and again, I'm not signing a petition or anything, but I really don't like the fact that the music is a little bit more high adventure and a little bit more like in your face. I wouldn't say God of War-esque with like, Gregorian chanting, but it's a little bit more in your face. And I always thought Diablo worked better with kind of the ambient, creepy music. So I think it's interesting that you say that you don't like it when it's not ambient, because I think sometimes it can really enhance a certain type of game.
Yeah, I guess part of me is like I like things melody driven. I just like something that sticks to me and home. That's what I like about the music. Not exactly just fitting the game and everything. Well, is it memorable enough to carry over for me to listen and remember my head through time? Like all those classic games and stuff like that. That's just how my mindset falls.
Okay, I can definitely see that. Like the music of Diablo, you can't exactly hum that except for like maybe the Tristram's theme. So, yeah. Okay, didn't mean to cut you off, Dennis. I just thought that was interesting.
Okay, yeah, maybe we'll make that into a discussion someday, but end of the time. And of course, E7 came out last Tuesday. Been enjoying it. And that's technically the first game I actually own both the import and the English version of it. Because basically it's like with all the publishers having bad luck with the series beforehand, I just decided to pick up the E7 when it was just in Japan, was just looking at guides, because who knows when it's coming out to the US, if at all. Thankfully, XE, didn't be doing a good job at it and been greatly enjoying it. Overall, it's very different from all the other ones. For starters, it's actually the longest East game by far, because the average East game is about 6 to 8 hours. When I played the import, and remember, I didn't even get lost in the game because it was rather straightforward. I clocked in at 30.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's quite a jump for what I was just familiar. It's like I was just fully expecting to pay $60 for the import thing. It's like, yeah, it's a short but very sweet ride kind of thing, like all the other games. It's like, no, I didn't expect it to last me that long, and just have so much compared to the other games. So that was really impressive. Interesting feature about this East game is there's a party system, whereas it was always a solo adventure beforehand. You could switch between 3 party members on the fly, and it actually works out really good for the first time. Falcom did something like this for the series. The AI is well handled because they dodge the attacks well. They barely get hit, and even if they receive a heavy amount of damage, they actually will not die unless you switch to them. So they could just be hanging in 1 HP, and if you just switch to the wrong place, that's when they get screwed. So you don't really have to worry about managing the AI if you can handle it yourself well, kind of thing.
That's kind of an interesting mechanic, just the fact that you can't die unless you're in that character's shoes. So you could theoretically jump around, couldn't you heal somebody and then jump around just to make sure that you don't end up dying?
Yeah, you could still do it, but I'm just saying, it's like you don't have to deal with the worry of, your party members dying on you because of a stupid mistake. In fact, it just feels like, yeah, your party AI is a bit under-aggressive. They don't do as much damage as they should, but they take survival over everything. So that's kind of helpful in that sense.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it lost the platformer elements that some of the other games have, mostly from the import side, so people aren't really familiar, probably until November when Othin Felgan is going to be into the picture, because that's a 2005 PC game that's got a recent PSP port transfer, and that's going to also be coming.
All right.
I guess the only thing I kind of felt let down about E7 is with the boss fights, it's kind of gotten scaled on the easy side, whereas I really, really like the way Othin Felgana does things, because this is how it works. No items. It's just pure skill with only levels and equipment being secondary factors, but yeah, you got a lot of attacks to dodge, you got to hit. it's all about your skills to preserve the boss fights. And yeah, there's no healing or anything, so yeah, good luck. Whereas with E7, they kind of back to the heal aspect, I guess, because of the party members. But still, it's like with normal mode, I believe there's a 9-item limit, whereas with the harder difficulties, the item cap is a lot smaller.
So now that's in terms of like healing items and whatnot. So like you have less resources in the middle of a battle when you up the difficulty, basically.
Yeah. But still, it's one of the easier games I've played because yeah, I guess I just got spoiled by how epic the Falgana boss fights get because of the way it's structured.
All right, well, excellent. Now we're going to move on to Neal talking about stuff. Go for it, Neal.
Okay. Besides a couple of indie games I reviewed for the fan, I've been playing the demo for this indie game called Recettear. It's an indie Japanese game that was picked up by an indie American publisher. It releases on September 10th, and I've been playing the demo a lot. I mean, the game, it's like an item shop sim / dungeon crawling RPG. It's a lot like the Gus titles, like Atelier Annie for the DS, where she's basically running a shop and killing monsters.
I forget who talked about this a couple weeks ago.
I think we brought it up in news because there was the announcement and the demo, came out. And so
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Bottom line for me is that I had to force myself to uninstall the demo from my computer because I didn't want to burn myself out on it before the game actually drops. Because what can I say? I got addicted to the whole running an item shop sim. And let's see, what else have I been playing? Oh yeah, I finally got around to playing Final Fantasy 13. About 14 hours or so into it, and I'm actually part of the camp that likes it.
Yay!
Zach, you've played like 20 minutes of it.
I have not. I've played a good 7 hours ish. Maybe.
Okay, have you gotten to the part where it's 2 people in a party?
Yeah, and I mean it's not super fantastic, but I beat Odin in 2 tries where it took you 6.
And I also killed you in StarCraft.
Ice burn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hope couldn't heal my party fast enough.
It's cool. No, but yeah. So Neal, please.
Well,
What is your take?
My take on Final Fantasy 13. Well, here's the thing. I was really hesitant about playing it, because I heard all the complaints and everything, and I thought I was honestly gonna hate it. But I've been playing it, and I like it. I mean, it to me. I think it's fun. I like the characters, and the music's incredible.
Okay,
especially that battle theme. The battle theme rocks.
Okay, I got to go back a step. Because I'm going to be diplomatic when it comes to Final Fantasy 13. All right, I can understand you having fun with the game. I personally don't find it fun. Whatever. I can understand you liking the music. That's perfectly fine. You honestly like the characters. Really? Like you really like? Okay. What exactly is it about the characters that you like? I want to know.
That I mean, on my end, they're characters and not, I have a chainsaw on my gun. Or
No, but instead it's some dude like we can be heroes. Or
yeah, okay. I mean, so it's some of the characters are really bad.
Vanille can be a little over the top at times. Hope can be a little whiny. I mean, Lightning can be cold, but I mean, I think but to me, it's like they're kind of believable because, I mean, here they are. They've just the life they knew has just been completely cut off. They've been thrust into exile. I mean, no one wants to know anything about them. The world they're in now has been completely abandoned. So, I feel like, what? If I was in that situation and frustrated, I would probably be a pain in the neck like they are.
See, but when I play Final Fantasy 13, the character is really great on me because we've seen huge strides in character developments in recent years, be it in RPGs or in other genres. Just thinking, for example, like even though I think Final Fantasy 12 has a very screwed up story and it basically cuts off like completely at the wrong point, I really enjoyed those characters because they were deep and meaningful, and there seemed to be a lot of conflict going on. And it was conflict from the very start. Like from the very start, I could tell that the characters had a lot of depth. 13 feels like 3 steps backwards, like where the characters, and I understand that there is a lot of depth that comes later. Again, I've read synopses, I've watched things on YouTube. I just have no desire to play the game because I don't find it fun, but I understand that comes later. But my point is that at the beginning of the game, there's nothing to really like about these characters, and so I was playing a game where I didn't like the battle system, I didn't like the characters, and I didn't like the story. And it was like, okay, well, that's the triple threat of death for a video game for me, where like I have no desire to play.
It's a pretty rough trifecta that is unfortunately very top heavy. It's most of that I feel like is, from what you've said and from what other people have said, is solved, not entirely, but for the most part towards, like the middle and the end of the game. And, it's, we can get back to, ragging on it for having a 20-hour tutorial or whatever, but I feel like that's said to death, And
I think part of it might be that, if the game was called something other than Final Fantasy, people might have received it better.
Yeah, that's what I wonder at times, too.
See, I would go the other end, honestly, and I would say that, and I remember I talked with our editor-in-chief, Eric, about it. I would have actually said that this game would have scored noticeably lower if it didn't have Final Fantasy in the title, because I think a lot of people were, I don't want to say making excuses, but I think I heard a lot of, oh yeah, the first 20 hours are really bad, but then it gets really good. Or, well, the battle system isn't exactly what I want, but it's okay. Like, I just heard a lot of almost mental gymnastics. If we go back to the South Park episode, I heard a lot of mental gymnastics for people trying to explain how they liked it. And I think people on the show that we've had, what was that? Are you sawing wood, Neal?
No, sorry. I accidentally knocked off my headset.
Okay, all right. He was so angry, he just threw it down. But no,
Yeah,
I think that
for sawing off wood.
I think that the people on that we've had on the podcast have really defended the game well. Like I know Dennis and I had a conversation about it. Zach has a different opinion than me, and you guys are all articulating it very, very well, and I think you guys like it for what it is. But some of the reviews that I were reading just like extolling the virtues of this game, but there were these caveats here and there like, oh yeah, this part sucks, or oh yeah, this character is really annoying, or blah, 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 blah. But you know what? We're still going to give the game a high score, and I'm sitting there going like, I don't know if it didn't have Final Fantasy in the title, would it have scored higher or lower? I don't know.
All right. In my case for that, I guess the way I just feel is like, yeah, if I fall on there, it would have been received better if it wasn't Final Fantasy. Only because it's like it's the standard issue. It's like, yeah, people are expecting it to be mind blown. It didn't deliver, so of course they're a little lower. If it was just any other RPG, they probably would appreciate it more. That kind of mindset.
Okay, I can see that angle. I can honestly see that angle just from the pure spectacle standpoint of the game. Like you expected that with Final Fantasy, so we're numb to it. The fact that it looks fantastic and it sounds great, like we're numb to that, so we almost throw that away right away and then focus on the battle system. So I can see where you're going with that.
Otherwise, It's like, yeah, if it's just a regular RPG, probably would be a lot softer on it, or maybe in some critics a lot harder, but probably more in the more lenient side of things. Because it doesn't have some big name to look up to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's an alternative, scenario is Resonance of Fate. Now, I'm not saying that it's a better game or a worse game or any, judgment on it in particular, but if Resonance of Fate is a game where they give you everything at the very beginning, and like
it's overload,
and it's overload. And I mean, you have to, like, sure, there's a balance between them, but, and, people are going to say, well, you just suck for not, like learning it fast enough. But, I mean, it's still a good, I still enjoyed playing what I played of it. It just was too hard. And so, I'm not going to knock it for, being a very difficult game with a, perhaps, it's certainly not too complex. People have learned how to play it and, figured that out. But it's just, the first 15 minutes, are a little rough, much like the first, 10 to 15 to 20 hours are a little slow. I mean, it's a different predicament. And yes, I feel like, if it is the case that reviewers are, taking the name, like Final Fantasy into account, and it certainly is the case in some reviews, like not off the top of my head, but that is not a, I would go against that practice. I'd be vocally against, just saying it's good because it's Final Fantasy. But I still think that as a game, like that perhaps does take too long to start, like rolling. It's still fun. I'm at least still having fun with it.
Okay.
And about Resonance of Fate, I mean, I and Dennis, I think you and I had this conversation at some point. You made the point that FF13 and Resonance of Fate almost seem like complementary RPGs.
Yeah, because it has all the things that the others don't.
Yeah.
Like Resonance of Fate has all the, flashy stuff. It has the side stuff. It's non-linear, things like that.
Well, I think to keep the podcast moving, we're not really done talking about the issues with Final Fantasy 13 because that leads into our topic. Well, no, it'll never end. But it leads very nicely into the game that I started playing the past 2 weeks while we've been off air, and then that leads into our topic of discussion, so we can kind of do the two things at the same time. My main complaint about Final Fantasy 13 was that it wasn't fun. I didn't feel in control of the battle system. I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing. I felt very far removed from total control, and that's a huge issue for me in a video game. Now, I recently started playing The World Ends With You, and this is a game, I'm playing the DS game. I'm so into the story. It's a unique setting. You're, a small kid who has amnesia, whatever. You're in Tokyo, and you're in the middle of you're in Shibuya, and you're in the middle of this game where you're trying to, complete these quests in a set amount of time, even though, the game doesn't actually have an in-game timer on it, but that's the nature of the story. So you're meeting people and you're making connections and you're trying to figure out the big mystery of how did this game start and whatnot. I'm into all that. I'm into the look of the game. It looks beautiful. You'd think that Yoshitaka Amano's art style would annoy me, but I think in this context it works very, very well.
Nomura.
Oh God, I'm sorry. Oh my God,
Their belts and zippers.
Thank you guys. Thank you. I'm so tired right now. Okay. All right. No mirror. Okay. There we go. Sorry.
That's what we're here for.
I'm sorry. I'm really tired, and we're recording this late at night. But thank you for catching me. But no, his art style really works in this setting. There's belts and zippers everywhere. I'm so into the setting. I'm so into finding out what the story is going to happen. But I just think the gameplay is crap. Like it's so imprecise. And keep in mind, I'm playing it on a DSi XL, and some games do seem to have issues with precision when it comes to that. But I just feel so out of control in this battle system. For people that don't know, you basically have the battle is taking place on both screens. On the bottom screen, you're controlling the main character with the stylus, moving him around, and then performing stylus actions to attack enemies. Every one of your actions has a cooldown period, so you're trying to monitor the cooldown period on the various actions that you can use with your stylus, be it a slash for a dagger attack, or maybe touching the enemy quickly to send out an ice pellet or whatever. Then on the top screen, you're inputting combos with the D-pad in order to make the top screen character fight enemies. Now, theoretically, the game wants you to do both of these at the exact same time. What happens is one character starts an attack, and they get what's called a puck. And this puck will then move to the other character, and then you're supposed to input commands for that character, and then the puck will move back and forth between the characters. It's supposed to make sure that you're not doing everything at the same time, but you're moving back and forth between the top and bottom screen. As we were talking about earlier, I can multitask in StarCraft with no problem. This game bewilders me. I feel completely out of control with this battle system. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll end up dying in a battle, and I won't understand why. Then I'll restart the exact same battle because the game lets you save wherever you want, which is a great feature. But then I'll just play the battle again. I'll play it the exact same way that I did and not even get hit. So it feels very weird. And then the game does another bizarre thing where it makes it so that you can really customize the battle system. You can make it so that your top screen character is completely controlled by the game's AI. You can make it so that you knock the difficulty back down. But if you do that, then the drop rate on rare items goes down. All these things would indicate to me that this battle system is inherently broken, and the developers knew it. You guys have all played the game. At least I know Neal has because you reviewed it.
So
and
have I.
Dennis has. I'm going to assume Zach has.
I've played a small amount of it, not recently.
Is it not obvious that this game does not work if the developers put all these? Is this an example of the developers were so far ahead in their thinking that they realized that some people would have a hard time with it, that they made it so you could play the game the way you wanted to, or are they inherently admitting that the battle system is completely broken and unplayable?
Well, I don't see how they're admitting that it's in what way, because I mean they let you auto control the D-pad character if you want. Like if you let it just kind of sit, it'll just send off combos, and it certainly won't do it as fast as like you could rattle off a combo. But I mean from what I've played, and this was probably like 2 years ago, and I didn't play much more than like 3 or 4 hours of it. I mean, I had a good time. My biggest qualm was that whatever the main character's name is just super emo.
Neku,
yeah.
Neku is
I know that changes, but yeah, that was my biggest issue with it.
Neku is like Squall if somebody shot his puppy. Like it's just taking Squall all the way up to Spinal Tap levels of 11. Like he.
I mean, apparently,
but
when you get later in the game.
What I'm trying.
But
no, go ahead. No,
I was just gonna continue, please.
I guess to me, the battle system is just the worst part of this game. Like, I don't find the battles fun. I don't feel in control. I don't know what's happening. Like, okay, maybe I am but a simple.
Yeah, it really is. Patting your head and rubbing your tummy at the same time.
Yeah, I saw that in your review, and I was like, that is awesome. And you mentioned in your review, Neal, that basically you just got through the whole game by stylus mashing. And see, we always, a game like, say, God of War, people will say like, oh, it's just a button masher. And it gets detracted for that. Now, why didn't The World Ends With You get that?
Well, again, it's like you said. I mean, yes, the battle system had its flaws. I mean, I applaud that it had unique idea. Maybe wasn't super precise, but it's because the other elements of the game were just so good. I mean, the visuals were really stylish. I thought the story was fantastic. I love the music. I mean, everything else about the game was just so good that that even though the battle system, I would have completely like annihilated it in a lesser game, I was able to kind of overlook it a bit.
And see, I can't do that. I'm such a if we're gonna make the analogy of like game review as like, I don't know, looking at a car or something, I am more concerned with the engine than how the car looks. And the car has to be fun to handle, and it has to be like, I don't care if I'm driving, like my mom's hatchback or whatever, like something that just looks god awful, as long as it's fun to control. And I'm an engine guy and I'm a gameplay guy, and I can't get into The World Ends With You, and I'm probably going to play it to completion because I am intrigued, but I can't enjoy the overall gameplay. And if I can't enjoy the gameplay, then to me the game is just it's heavily flawed. Like I forget what you gave it, Neal, but it's something like an 86 or whatever.
Yeah, on the website. Yeah, and that was actually one of the lowest rated reviews that you see on Metacritic, and I liked the game quite a bit. But again, I think it's a fair score because it was above average, and it was so great in all areas. But I can't, but you know, like with the battle system, I'm sure plenty of folks agree with you, Rob, that it's finicky and not
Yeah,
good way.
I like to share my take on the battle system.
Sure.
I guess part of my problem was it felt like a steep learning curve. Like I was just getting crappy ranks and all that. It just took me a while to find my little style, how just things work. Eventually, I just kind of mostly focused on the bottom screen and just kind of button D-mash the top. And I just picked the pins I liked that were simple to use, that were strong, that were effective, and just ran with it. So I didn't experiment too much.
And see, I haven't gotten any more pins than what you start out with. Like, I still only have the starting set, and I'm like 4 or 5 hours into the game, and I'm like, okay, I really only like 2 of these, and even that, I don't really like them that much.
Yeah, it's like I don't remember when you get more pins anyhow. And I guess the one thing that did get to me in the battle system, it mostly didn't bother me. It just was during the boss fights where things are chaotic or there's barely any openings during some of the boss fights. So that kind of floored me at times.
Yeah,
especially towards the end.
Yeah, trying to get Neku to dodge in that game is like just an exercise in frustration because you have to press the stylus down on him and then quickly move in a direction, and you're supposed to use that to like dodge enemy attacks. So you see the enemy telegraph the attack, you know, it's coming, and I think I dodged maybe 1 out of every 10 times, and I'm sure somebody's going to say, oh, you just suck at the game, and I'm like, no, it's very imprecise. I think this is a horrible use of the DS. Like, there's so many other cool things going on in this game, but overall, the DS controls, that stylus-based control, is just horrible.
With random encounters, it didn't really get to me. It's mostly the later boss fights where, like I said, just felt tough, but at least there's difficulty scaled down. So
right, I can drop the difficulty down, and I think it's great when a developer makes a game that you can play it the way you want to play it, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
But
that's
it
what
also
I really liked about it.
Yeah, but that also screams to me that somebody, like, as this game was getting ready to be made, somebody was like, you guys realize we've made something that is just like, we all get it, but is anybody else going to get it? You know, it's like the groupthink scenario. I brought up the same idea with Dragon Age because I think the doctors at BioWare, they came out when Mass Effect 2 was coming out, and they said, oh, yeah, gamers are coddled too much and games are too easy these days. And I'm like, okay, Dragon Age beat me to death with, like, a rusty hammer. And like Mass Effect 2, I died once. Like, you guys really don't understand difficulty. Like, if you're playing a game for 3 years, you are not put in a position of a new gamer playing your game for the first time. Like, I think if somebody at Square had given, you know, just a focus test group this game, the bewildered look on everybody's face would have scared them to death. Because everybody's got to have the same look in their face when they first come across a battle in this game of just, what am I doing? Like, what is this? On a side note, this game has some of the worst tutorials and menus I've ever seen. There's a point in the game where you actually have to read what you're supposed to do on the top screen while performing it on the bottom screen. And now, granted, you can't die in that encounter, but it was like, I can't do both at the same time. I have no idea what you want me to do right now.
I don't recall that much trouble.
I just
okay with it too.
I'm bewildered by the battle system, and I can never get it. The one strike, the vertical strike, I just gave up on. I completely gave up on that pin. I literally could never get it to work. I got it to work maybe once in every battle, and I would just do it over and they're like, well, make sure to bring the stylus up off the screen when you complete the strike, and I would try it and it just wouldn't work.
With some of the pins, you know, you doing some of the stylus motions, just it was finicky. So I found that I tended to use a lot of the pins where basically I'm furiously tapping at the enemies or using ones where the movements, or using some of the arc movements, because I felt like, oh, those work for me.
Yeah.
It just depends on what works for you, really.
Yeah, and I think that's a good aspect of the game, but I just, getting back to what we were talking about before, which was control in an RPG, I just feel very out of control in The World Ends With You and in Final Fantasy 13. Now, maybe this is just my own personal gamer style, but like, if I'm playing an RTS, I'm okay with everything happening in real time. That's perfectly fine. You know, like when I beat Zach this evening in StarCraft 2, like I'm okay with the fact that, you know, my Dark Templar run in there and just beat all of his resource units.
We know. It's not an RPG.
Just gotta rub
Get back on topic.
Just gotta rub that salt in there.
But it's when you introduce like an active time bar and it's hurry up and wait that bugs you.
No, it's more if I have to monitor HP levels and MP levels and make sure that I input proper commands, I want there to be a pause. And honestly, if Dragon Age Origins had not had a pause button, I would not have been able to play that game.
But I mean, that's the thing. Dragon Age Origins is like the epitome of a computer RPG, you know, as it was like close to 10 years ago. So it wouldn't be the same genre if you had, you know, like Dragon Age without a pause. I mean, it'd be a very, very different game.
Exactly. But then, like, why did they take that out from, like, Final Fantasy 12 is similar, and you can pause and assign tactics if you want to, and that saved me in a couple of the boss fights in Final Fantasy 12. But Final Fantasy 13, there ain't no pause button. That battle is just going. It's like a downhill, like, steeplechase. It is. If you lose control of the battle system in Final Fantasy 13, you're already dead. I mean, like if you've done one thing wrong, it's over. And I applaud the fact that the game's difficult, but I also am sitting there going like, okay, I'm sorry that I didn't like notice right away that the character that I'm not in control with wasn't doing the right thing.
And in this instance, in Final Fantasy's instance, I actually agree with you that it could have benefited from a pause. It could have even benefited from a computer interface. You know, like if that game had played, you know, like with the same battle system, but just with the interface of, you know, like Dragon Age, you know, like with a more expanded, open, available interface instead of having, you know, like menus.
Oh yeah, the menus. And like sitting there trying to cycle through the menus and make sure that you assign the proper tactics, and then you get into the whole like meta game, which is like, oh well, do I fill out my whole bar or do I just do like Dennis said in one of the episodes, like put 1 or 2 in and then commit the action right away? Like in the time that it took me to think about whether or not I should do that, I just died.
Yeah, it's almost like how in, you know, the earlier Final Fantasies when you could choose either active or wait. I would always choose wait because I didn't want to have the enemy pounding on me while I'm cycling through menus.
Because I choose active for the hell of it.
No, I'm with Neal. I always go wait. Because I feel like there's more of a tactical element. And I'm sure somebody's going to make the argument, oh, well, there's more of a tactical element because now you're right in the middle of things and you have to keep going. But, like, if you compare Final Fantasy X, which I think 10 had my favorite battle system in a Final Fantasy, where it was just purely tactics. Like, you knew when that enemy was going to hit you with something, and you had to get ready for it.
Yeah, it had the turn order.
Yeah, and I loved that. I'm sitting here going like, bring that back. And then to go to the World Ends With You, and now I'm a righty. Okay, I'm a righty. So my right hand is constantly covering up the HP bar to where I can't see. I can't see what I'm doing. So I'm like...
Imagine how hard it would be if you're a lefty, you know, having to use the D-pad and all that.
Yeah, I just... I don't know exactly how some people can manage to do it, but it's just really, really hard for me. And I like to play an RPG where I feel fully in control. And not to bring up StarCraft again, but StarCraft has those awesome hot buttons, which makes it so that you can perform actions very, very quickly. And Final Fantasy 13 is menu driven. And I'm sorry, I used the Yahtzee thing. The World Ends With You is very like touch based.
Well, I think it's interesting. So it's an interesting comparison that you make between Final Fantasy 13 and 12, because The World Ends With You, because for everything that, you know, like for all the imprecision that there is in that system, you know, like and I was thinking about how the DSi XL would kind of expand on that, and that, you know, it's certainly possible that like what would normally be like what you would think would be like a regular size, you know, like stroke up is, you know, like smaller because of the relative size of the DSi XL screen. Basically, I mean, it's a very accessible system, you know, like it gives you everything that you need. You have all the pins available, you know, like it's the touch screen and the D-pad, and there's no like sub menus that you have to shuffle through like in Final Fantasy 13. So I think that's you know, like one of the things that like despite its imprecision, The World Ends With You kind of does better than Final Fantasy 13. It's much more like open and well presented.
Dennis, get in there.
All right, so again, like I was mentioning, part of me wants you to try the East games because I think some of the complaints he was talking about with lack of control and stuff, I think you'll appreciate what the games does more. Like for example, like I talked about with E7 earlier, the AI won't have any stupid deaths on you or anything of that sort. Whereas with a lot of boss fights, especially with the Ultim Felgana, my favorite action RPG, where levels and equipment do kind of have a factor in it. Otherwise, the rest is just skill, purely skill-based kind of thing. Where you won't get through the boss fights at all if you don't even know what you're doing, kind of thing. And even if you lose repeatedly, you could just there's a retry option, no penalties, and you just retry right at the boss, no problem. When all the scenes already skipped.
Yeah, one last thing. Go ahead, Neal. Go ahead.
And Dennis, and you said that the companion AI in 7 was pretty good.
Yeah, because like I said, they won't take much damage. They won't die on you of any sort, and easy to switch on the fly. It's like you don't have to babysit them pretty much.
That's all I need to hear. I do not enjoy babysitting computer control characters.
None in this game.
I agree. One last thing, and then we got to get to news because we're starting to run a little long. And I'm not trying to just have the final word, but I love the fact that Final Fantasy 13 gives you the retry option in battles. I think The World Ends With You should have had that option because you can die in a random encounter in that game very easily.
I think you got it reversed because World Ends With You allowed you to retry, and it would ask you,
no,
you want to retry it on easy?
No. If you die on a battle and The World Ends With You, you go right back to the start menu. And you get to save whenever you want to in The World Ends With You, which is great. But now if you suddenly forgot to save...
Boss battles, they let you retry.
Okay, boss battles. Okay, so I died in a random encounter, and it was after a major story bit. And, shame on me, I didn't save beforehand. But then I had to go back through that whole thing. If you're going to have a save system in a game where it's not based around reaching a save point, it's based around the user deciding when to save. You have to do it like Dragon Age, where the game will automatically save at certain points. You can't leave it completely up to the player, because if the player gets too absorbed, if the player suddenly doesn't want to be taken out of the experience and save, if the immersion factor has gotten a hold of them, you can put yourself in a position where you go a couple, half hour without saving. And that can really come back to bite you.
Yeah, tell you. In this one game I was recently playing, Dreamscape, the autosaver saved my tail many times.
Yeah, you need an autosave function. If you have user-controlled saving, you need an autosave function. And that's a minor complaint at The World Ends With You. It was kind of like shame on me, I'm not going to let that happen again. But I literally just stared at the game and I was like, oh, come on.
At the very least, I believe there's a text skipping option, at least very fast forward.
Oh, is there? Okay, I missed it then. Maybe in those myriad menus.
To me, it's bad when you can't skip text and you have to do all of that over. Games like World's Ends With You, you could skip them, or at least go through them fast. Like I forget the start button or something like that.
Oh, then that's not a big deal then. Then I just missed that. Okay. All right, so now with all that said, we have lots and lots of news to talk about. Zach, can we start? Can we start with the news story that I was right on, please?
Please.
Please.
The one that they told us you would be right on, because they did say it would be a teaser trailer.
They did not say that when I called it, sir.
I think
they did not say that when I called it.
I don't know. I might be mistaken, but I suppose let's just jump into it. Dragon Age 2. There was a trailer at EA's press conference at Gamescom.
Badass.
Yeah, it was a pretty awesome trailer. Like those demon hands at the end are like crazy, but it was CG. And there's been some kind of stuff leaking out a while back about like how there's like the cameras like not going to be as far out and certain things like that. No modding in the PC version at least.
Yeah,
is a bummer.
There's a lot of really interesting things going on with Dragon Age 2. I wish Kyle or John were here to talk about Dragon Age, but first off, the new screenshots look so much better than those ones that they put in Game Informer.
Better, but they're also, like better placed. I feel like they're better composed than the games ones were, because if you look still at if you look at the ground textures in the new screenshots, they're still like pink/orange and ugly as all sin. But you don't see much of the ground textures because like the focus is on the character models, and like the character models are getting better. Like it's certainly still a game that has a long ways to go. At least March 8th is the currently announced release date, at least for the US. It's like a couple days later in Europe. But I'm still excited. I still also need to play Dragon Age, but
yes, you do. Now it looks much better. I agree with you that some texture work looks bad, but we'll see how that works out. But the game looks much better. What I'm concerned about though is I want to play this game on the console/device, whatever you want to call it, that it's meant to be played on. I played Dragon Age Origins on my PC because it was a PC game. If this is going to be more of an action-based game, which they said that this is a game where you press a button and something instantly happens. It's not like God of War, and it's not like Dynasty Warriors, but it is very like tactile feeling. Do I really want to play this game on PC? Because I'll tell you what, I was playing, again, not an RPG, but I was playing Kane and Lynch Dog Days, and I was playing the demo, which I did not like. And the behind the back style game, the third person style shooter on a PC controls horrible. It does not feel right. It feels very, very awkward. It's just the mouse and keyboard design is not suited to a third person style adventure.
Really, it's not great. And so that's one thing. I mean, when it first was kind of announced that it would have that sort of different, more actiony, or more, I think they called it like intense and like other marketing speak adjectives for like action game. Like that's the one thing that I was kind of bringing up is like, hey, like what if this is a very different game on the PC and the console? And I mean that's something that you kind of have to or that would be interesting to see, is if Dragon Age 2 on the PC played like Dragon Age 1 and Dragon Age 2 on the console played like more of an action game. It's two very different games.
Yeah.
Two very different gameplay experiences.
The only way I was able to get through Mass Effect 2, because Mass Effect 2 doesn't feel terrible, even though it's third person on PC. The only reason I was able to get through it was because I was playing as a sniper class. So I was able to basically go into first person view mode essentially and shoot people. But if I tried to play as like a biotic or whatever in that game, there's just it just feels off on PC. It feels very, very weird to aim with your mouse if you're trying to use like a specific skill in third person. It feels very, at least to me, I don't know about you guys, but it feels very, very weird. And I don't want to play Dragon Age 2 on PC if it's going to be like trying to play Batman Arkham Asylum on PC. Like I tried that and that didn't feel too good. Pressing left click to punch.
Yeah, you got to get the controller for that. But
yeah,
I would actually, but it's okay. Enough Dragon Age 2, but it's just very interesting. I want to see gameplay.
Soon,
all right?
Right?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. BioWare, you guys listen to the podcast. Fly me up to Canada, and I will look at that game. Like I want to see it running.
Yeah, I mean, other news from that same press conference is that Mass Effect 2 is coming to PS3.
Oh boy!
So more Mass Effect 2, yay! Because we love it so much. But I think the most interesting thing is that they're adding, since Mass Effect 1 wasn't on PS3 and probably won't be on PS3, they're adding a new chunk of content at the beginning of the game, which I'm they haven't said what it's going to be yet, but I'm assuming that it's going to be like a shortened, like a super short playthrough of Mass Effect 1 where you do like the main worlds, you can make your decisions, you can do your romances, whatever it is, hopefully updated with the Mass Effect 2 engine. I don't assume.
That's
with new cutscenes and they're going to add a handful of the DLC that's currently out on, to take advantage of that Blu-ray space. So
at the very least have some kind of short synopsis.
Yeah, I mean they've said it's going to be definitely going to be a gameplay thing. It's new gameplay. So they're I think they said, and now I'm not 100% sure, but in the realm of 3 to 4 hours, and I could be overestimating that, but So it's not going to be an unremarkable chunk of game. I'm excited to see what they do with that.
And
as long as they do something to compensate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
not like what they did with, say, Xenosaga in some other countries, because I think in Europe that they only got Xenosaga 2, and then they were able to get the montage of CG cutscenes, but that only tells you so much of the story.
Yeah,
and they can't.
Whereas with Sorry, go on.
I was going to say they can't release Mass Effect 1 because that was published by Microsoft.
Yeah, exactly.
So the only way that they could get around it is what I think they should do is do exactly like Zach was saying. You put Mass Effect 2's engine into Mass Effect 1, which would make me play Mass Effect 1 the whole way through, and you just release it as Mass Effect Ultimate or something like that.
I don't think they're going to go so far as that, but the Mass Effect 1 can certainly be played through, if you're playing a soldier spec to, run through the game, you can do a run for 6 to 8 hours. But I think that they're going to do a condensed version of that, maybe if not the whole game, then, expand that sequence at the beginning of Mass Effect 2 where they go over your choices and, give you snippets of Mass Effect 1. But
just
I think
the main points of the story, basically.
Yeah. But just there's a whole bunch of news, so I'm just gonna keep going.
Yep. Sorry, I was gonna make fun of the fanboys crying, but go for it.
Neal, your favorite indie, or not favorite, but your indie RPG, Recettear, is coming out, as you said, on September 10th. It's gonna be 15 euros or 13 pounds, and it's gonna be on for those of you who don't want to just buy it from the developer's website and lose your download or whatever. It's going to be on Stardock's Impulse platform, which is, it's not quite Steam, but it's still a respectable downloadable platform that I have my fair share of games on. Let's see. Square Enix has brought Chaos Rings to the iPad, so it's nice, high res, and it's about it's $16. I'm just going to breeze through these. Cladun, this is an RPG, is coming out September 7th, and it's going to be distributed on PSN. It's the PSP game that they announced at Nice America's spoiler party a couple
Isn't that retro-looking one?
Yeah, I think it's like a dungeon crawler that you can customize the characters and that sort of stuff.
I'll at least take an eye on that, because I like it when I like the retro stuff, especially if they parry it. AK with Half Minute Hero did.
That game was cool, Half Minute Hero.
Yes.
Yeah,
Keep going, Zach.
Keep going. Lord of the Rings free to play is coming out also on September 10th. So if you're not playing the indie Japanese RPG, then maybe you're playing the big free to play Western MMO. Half Minute Hero Second, which is the second game in the series, will have an editing mode. Where you can create levels and different you can even have dialogue and stuff, lots of stuff in the game.
Very interesting.
So hopefully that'll we'll be able to share.
Is any heard about uploading it online to the PSP? It's kind of like what Mega Man Powered Up did. When you create the levels, get uploaded online, people can download it.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that before. It's going to use the PSP infrastructure online, so you'll be able to throw them up on, I guess, their servers, and they can even be rated. So, it'll definitely extend the life of that game. Hopefully, it'll be brought to America.
Yeah, there should be.
Keep going.
Pre-order Valkyria Chronicles 2 and get some extra missions. There's a couple.
Keep going.
All right. Final Fantasy 13 is not canceled for the 360. It is only on pause because of Xbox Live being a less open platform. 14, sorry.
Okay.
14. Final Fantasy 14, the MMO, still possibly coming to 360, but Xbox Live.
Oh, it's gonna be on 360
eventually. Let's see. Golden Sun Dark Dawn, which is the DS game, is coming to Japan but by the end of 2010. So definitely. I think we're looking.
So it's not coming to September 10th.
Yeah, it's still it's going to be maybe a little bit longer until it reaches us here.
Everything else is coming that day, so.
Yeah. World of Warcraft Cataclysm, $80 special edition, has some stuff in it. No, it has an art book, in-game pet, behind-the-scenes DVD, soundtrack, mousepad, and trading cards.
Very interesting. No release date yet.
Yeah, sooner or later. I'm assuming we'll see something. Did BlizzCon happen?
No, BlizzCon's in October.
We'll probably see something in BlizzCon for that. And then the last two biggish news titles that I think we should talk about perhaps a little bit more are Double Fine's next game, Costume Quest, is the first one. Which I don't know. Has everyone seen the trailers and such? So
yeah, it looks cute.
Mm-hmm. I think well, basically for those of you who hadn't seen the news story, it's Double Fine is the people who made Brutal Legend, led by Tim Schafer.
And Psychonauts.
And Psychonauts. I love that game.
Both great games.
Yeah. They are making a traditional kind of JRPG styled RPG set on Halloween, where you're like a boy or girl and his younger sister or her younger sister, and you go around like trying to save your town from this evil force. And it's an interesting take on the class system, which is kind of like if you're wearing like some dinky robot costume, you get into battles, you'll become like a giant mech, or like there's a unicorn costume and like some other costumes that they've announced. So there's a trailer out for that, and definitely check that out. I mean, any thoughts on that? I think it looks pretty interesting.
Man, it's not Diablo.
Made it sound interesting.
Well, look, if it has the same sense of fun that something like Death Spank did, then I'm definitely in.
I mean, it seems like it'll, perhaps Death Spank was a little bit more in the realm of slightly more juvenile humor, but Costume Quest seems like it'll be a good kind of feel good, funny sort of deal. And then last but not least is Atlus's first HD game, Catherine, which
I just saw the trailer last night.
I don't know
Interesting.
I don't know if it's confirmed to be like a super RPG. It's been touted as an action adventure game, but that's going to be coming in Japan this winter. So that just got announced in Famitsu, and I mean, I know Neal, I saw on the boards that you were getting pretty excited about it. I am too.
And so am I.
It piqued my interest. I mean, and because I'm definitely a Persona fan, and it looks like it's gonna handle. And one thing I like about Shin Megami Tensei is that they handle adult situations in a mature fashion in it, and it looks like this one will do it stylistically too.
Yeah. I have to go watch the trailer. I still haven't watched it yet. So.
It's it's in Japanese, and there's like very little indication that the game will come out.
It's the Persona 3 and 4 team that's making it, right?
Yeah, and SMT Nocturne. Although it's not a SMT game, I don't think. And we might have to we might not be doing much coverage in the future when we start seeing the gameplay, depending on how much of an RPG it really is. But I mean, it looks good. It's at the very least like that Persona pedigree is something that I'm excited for. And what adult themes, shall we say, there are in the trailer, I think are tastefully done. And I'm looking.
Yeah,
it looks kind of
brief,
trippy,
even though it's a little frequent.
Looks a little trippy, so I'm excited.
All right. Well,
I'm spent. Ugh.
Are you spent? All right.
Keep
going.
Keep
going. No, that's pretty much the end of the actual RPG fan podcast. If you guys want to end right now, that's perfectly fine. Totally. Yes, random encounter. It's really cool if you guys want to end now, but we're going to take the direction in a different route right now, which is the horrible customer service that I've been dealing with Sony.
I will quickly say that coming soon is an RSS feed.
How long have we been?
We've been saying that for a while, but we're really close now. I'm the one who's doing it.
You're about ready to start school again, Zach.
I am, but that's RSS is something I can do in my free time. I don't have classes on Tuesday or Thursday, which is pretty great. So,
Okay.
Coming soon. It'll be on iTunes. When it happens, review us.
So, just to give some background on what's been going on with me and my PlayStation 3, as I said a couple of weeks ago, my PlayStation 3, I got the yellow light of death. So I decided to turn it in rather than try to repair it myself. We all know that the videos are available online to repair it. I decided to turn it into Sony. Now, Sony offers 2 deals currently for if you have a 60 gig PlayStation 3 that has a yellow light of death. One is you can turn it in for $170 and get another 60 gig refurbished back. The other option is to spend $150 and get a PS3 Slim. Okay, now, as we all know, the PlayStation 3 Slim does not play PS2 games. So I had not been backing up my game saves, which is fine. Everybody can make fun of me for that. So I wanted to get back my PlayStation 3. I put a 250 gigabyte hard drive in there myself, so I took that out and I put the original 60 gig back in. I wanted to get back my PlayStation 3 because every PlayStation 3 imprints its own set of data on the hard drive so that it can only be used with that PlayStation 3. When I was going to turn it into Sony, I talked to 2 customer service representatives, and they both said that even though it was irregular, they would try to make sure I got back my unit, my PlayStation 3. They would repair it if they could and send it back to me. Needless to say, that didn't happen. I ended up getting a refurbished PlayStation 3. Okay, that sucks. I lost all my game saves. I have to play through Red Dead Redemption again. Fine, whatever. I plugged the PlayStation 3 in, and it doesn't work. And so now I have a broken, refurbished PlayStation 3. Now, the PlayStation 3, the 60 gig PlayStation 3, we all know that they have huge problems, and the only reason I got a refurbished one was because of the chance of me getting back my unit. So now I want to get a PS3 Slim. I understand I'm going to have to buy a PS2, but I want a PS3 Slim because they're better designed machines and they have better heat sinks and they have better fan capability. I was on the phone for 2 hours with Sony, and Sony was completely unwilling to follow through with their original offer of a PS3 Slim, saying that no, I had made the decision that I had made, and I was now under a new warranty, even though the system that they gave me was broken. I talked to a wonderful woman in corporate who will remain nameless for the purpose of this podcast, which was about the rudest, most condescending conversation I have ever had with somebody when it comes to customer service. She began by trying to lecture me on the fact that I was in a dangerous power area. I said, what? She said, well, you're living in such and such Pennsylvania currently, and that is a dangerous power area, and so you should unplug your PlayStation 3 all the time before you power it down just in case of a surge, so that we can avoid this issue in the future. Keeping in mind that this yellow light of death is a heat sink issue, this is a problem with the temperature of the PlayStation 3. It's not exactly a power issue. I said I don't really see what this has to do anything, but also keep in mind that I've been in Columbia, South Carolina for the past 2 years getting my graduate degree when this happened. She then proceeded to say that, oh, well, in South Carolina you have hurricanes, and that's just as dangerous to your PlayStation 3. Okay, a hurricane did not kill my PlayStation 3. I got a yellow light of death. I tried to explain to her that I had already paid money, $170. I want a slim PS3. I'm not worried about the difference. I want one of the original offers. She said that was not going to happen. I made mention of the fact that I was very concerned about getting another PlayStation 3 that would end up getting another yellow light of death. Her excuse, her response to me was, well, I have a 60 gig PlayStation 3 and it works fine. I've never experienced any problems.
Good for you.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a customer service specialist, but that is not exactly the way that you treat a customer. Okay. You do not sit there and say, well, I'm fine, and so you should be too. So needless to say, this woman was just completely rude and condescending when I asked to speak to her superior because I was not happy with the fact that she wasn't giving me a reason why I couldn't upgrade, and she wasn't even helping me. She said no. She refused to let me speak to a superior. Now we have a huge issue because if you ever ask to talk to somebody higher up in customer service, everybody has a boss, okay? And I'm sorry, I have a formal complaint against her right now through Sony where I had to call Sony back and try to work my way up through corporate again. Apparently she is like the brick wall of corporate. And I'm sitting here trying to launch a formal complaint at the way I was treated. The fact that 2 customer service representatives said they would try to get my PlayStation 3 back, she said, well, if you don't have their names, then I'm just going to assume that conversation never took place. Now, my PlayStation 2 broke 3 times when I was a kid in high school and in college. Twice it was repaired for free. Once it was repaired for $50, and I could have gotten that money back because of the lawsuit that Sony lost because of the disk read errors on their PlayStation 2s. We all remember what happened with Microsoft and the red ring of death. So I would advise anybody that's having problems with a yellow light of death on a PlayStation 3 to call Sony and stop taking it from them and stop letting them screw over their consumers, because this is BS. I am not embellishing what happened to me. I put a dispute order on my credit card because I am not going to pay for the service that they have yet to provide me until I get some answers from them why I can't go back on doing an original offer. This is completely ridiculous. This is a horrible way to treat your customers. And I'll tell you what, I've been a Sony owner since '97. I bought a PlayStation for Final Fantasy VII. See if we get back to RPG fan right there. I have never been treated this badly, and I no longer want to be a Sony customer if I'm being treated like this. So I'm off my soapbox right now. But I wanted you guys, the listeners, to understand what somebody is going through right now, trying to get something taken care of with customer service. I'm not trying to start a revolution. I'm not trying to get a petition signed. But I'm telling you, if you guys have had issues with your PlayStation 3s, please voice this to Sony, because this is a huge problem right now. Again, I'm not trying to start anything major. I'm not trying to start a petition or anything. But please, don't just roll over and take it from these companies when they tell you something like, oh, it can't be done. Because the fact of the matter is that it can. And I'm sorry, Nintendo is still the gold standard when it comes to hardware. And they still make the damn fine hardware that we all get, and you can basically flush a DS in a toilet and it will still run. Yep. But this PlayStation 3 issue is horrible right now, and I am so fed up and so frustrated, and I'm thanking you guys for letting me get my frustration out there. I did not embellish anything. I just gave you guys the facts of how I was treated. Take it for what you will. If anybody wants to make any comment, that's fine right now, because I'm done, and I'm getting mad again. So you guys can talk for a second. Talk, damn it.
Bummer, dude.
Yeah, it sucks, man. It's like when I hear about stuff like this, I hate to sound like an old man, but I sometimes keep thinking, and they don't make them like they used to. Because, I once had I had a Sega Genesis, a first generation Sega Genesis, back in 89 or 90, came with Altered Beast. At one point, had a bunch of people over. Someone spilled a cup of cola on it. To say I was pissed was an understatement, but, clean it off with some paper towels and everything, things still worked. It worked while I was in middle school, high school, college, and beyond. Worked perfect. Unfortunately, I lost it in one of my recent moves, but if I were to have it in front of me right now, plug it into my TV, I bet you it would still work. I don't think my PlayStation 2, my PlayStation 3, I'm not sure any of those could survive a cola spill. People have been talking about their Game Boys and everything being bulletproof and everything. Someone could argue that, with hardware being more advanced and having more moving parts, that yes, there's a greater chance of failure. But I feel like if I'm paying the kind of money I'm paying, I want to know that my hardware's not going to crap out on me, especially since I play RPGs. They're lengthy games where I'm saving a lot. So the last thing I need is for my hardware to conk out on me or my save files to get corrupted. Because, hey, hardware reliability is important for the types of games we play.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me that I've lost everything, Neal.
I think
I'm sorry.
My view comes as a younger gamer, but I have an SNES that still works to this day. It's in fact plugged in to like the tiny TV that I have next to my bed in case I want to play like Ken Griffey Jr.'s baseball or whatever.
Or Chrono Trigger.
Or I actually don't have. I have like the worst collection of SNES games, but that's besides the point. It still works. My N64 still works. My Dreamcast still works. If I can find where that is. And I think it's kind of silly that like it's just accepted. It's an accepted fact these days that that consoles will just die, and you either have to get a new one or you're gonna get it replaced, and you have to pay a little bit of money. I think it's kind of ridiculous almost that that's an acceptable business practice, and I'm perhaps one of those people that has rolled over and just accepted it because my Xbox red ringed a while ago, and fortunately I didn't have any games that I was in pressing need to play. But I did have to buy one of their goofy memory cards, which was like $30 or something for a 512 meg of space, and to slowly move transfer all of my files off of my old hard drive to my new hard drive when I got it, bit by bit, and it's silly, and it sucks that that what's going on with you, Rob, and so.
Yeah, I mean, it boggles my mind that the fact that I'm under a new 90-day warranty for my refurbished unit, but there's nothing that I can do to go back to the Slim, even though that was an offer that was originally on the table. As far as I'm concerned, Sony did not come through with their end of the bargain and supply me with a working unit. If I had gotten the unit and it played well for like a month, then I'd understand, okay, well, I'm well within the 90-day warranty. No, this was you gave me a unit, and out of the box, it didn't work. And this woman tried to sit there and say, well, it was probably damaged in shipping. Now, I've already taken pictures of the box, and I'm going to supply them to my credit card company. This thing was not damaged in shipping at all. The box was pristine. The fact that Sony is not willing to own up to the fact that they did not check to make sure that this thing was working, I guarantee you all they do is just plug in the AC unit and turn the unit on. Now, the unit does turn on. It gets a green light, but there's no output. There's no video output, and I did everything. I did the whole resetting the AV settings and everything. I worked with a customer service representative to try to get it working. But the fact that Sony was not willing to own up to the fact that they had not upheld their end of the bargain, the way I see it, I'm the only one that's lost anything in this. Sony has my original PlayStation 3, which they're going to refurbish and give to somebody. They're going to get that back, the unit that they gave me that's broken. They're going to refurbish that and give it to somebody. I'm the one who's lost everything. And even if I get a Slim, I still have to buy a PS2 because my brother-in-law has my PlayStation 2. So I still have to go out and buy one. Sony's just going to get more of my money. So I don't understand why this can't be done. The fact of the matter is that I met somebody in corporate who is simply unwilling to please a customer in terms of an offer that had originally been made. That is BS to me. Sony has not lost any money. In fact, if they went ahead and gave me the stupid Slim, they would have made $30 more than they would have. So I don't understand this business practice. I do not understand why this is acceptable. And I'm sorry, excuses like AC power and, oh, my system works, those are not customer service.
Or the weather.
Or the weather.
That's the goofiest of them all.
I don't know. I think the My PlayStation Works was the worst argument of them all.
I'm in agreement with that. It's weather's partially understandable. It's that's kind of obnoxious.
Mm. I mean, I really just wanted to voice it because, we are in the media. We are in the press. I mean, we work for a small website, which is great, and we're not getting paid to do this. We're gamers just like everybody else. I buy my game systems. I buy my games. To be met with this kind of attitude and arrogance on Sony's part, it really makes me no longer want to be a Sony customer. And that's coming from somebody who could have been accused of being a PS3 fanboy. Anybody could have accused me of that. I don't own a 360, but I was seriously giving thoughts to going out and buying one because I could not believe how I was being treated.
Yeah.
So,
like Neal said, they don't make them like they used to. It's no Nintendo product ever broke on me, whereas I had issues with the PS2, my first generation PSP, and the first Xbox.
Yeah. And we pay good money for this stuff.
I paid $600 for that thing. Come on, man.
I know. You pay that kind of money, you expect it to work.
This reminds me of something. Sorry to interrupt you guys.
Sure.
It's like I was just randomly watching this YouTube video called like "How Tough Are NES Games?" as in how tough are the NES cartridges. I thought it was just kind of an amusing watch. It's like, wow, it could really withstand a lot. For instance, for example, one person just dropped it from 50-story tall building. It rubbed it in alcohol. Those both worked. It left out in the snow for 3 days straight, and it worked. It even ran over a car, and the cartridge worked.
Yeah.
And then there's the bombed out Game Boy at the Nintendo World Store in New York City.
Yes, I saw that.
It was in I think an explosion in a bunker somewhere in the Middle East, like at some point 10 to 15 years ago. Yeah, or longer. I'm not, history and me are bad, but like over 10 years ago, and it was blown up pretty much. The casing is melted, and it's still able to run a demo of Tetris being played 24/7 at that store.
I tell you, Game Boys were built like bricks. I mean,
they were
pockets of colors, the advances, all bulletproof.
And see, I had to send I was kind of stuck. I had to send my PS3 to Sony because there's no way to get a disc out of a PS3 when it's broken, when it's yellow lighted, unless you have a 40 gig unit, because then you can do the whole trick where you hold down the power button and switch on the back and switch it back off and on, and it'll pop out. That doesn't work on a 60 gig. So my DVD was stuck in there. To make matters worse, Sony does not have a system designed to save your game saves, which I think is their biggest mistake. That's a huge problem.
There was a trick I kind of learned, maybe this is something you can drop, because I was using this 60 gig PS3 with which I shared with my brother. Then I decided enough is enough. I bought myself my own Slim that I use for myself. There's something I just wanted to discover. It's the save files carry over flash drives. That's what I did, and I transferred my save files. Some are connected to the network, so I couldn't transfer my files for Demon Souls and Heavy Rain. The rest I did no problem. So
and I would have done that, but I couldn't. I couldn't even do that because my PlayStation 3 was broken, so I couldn't even transfer the files.
I guess next time, just in case, when you get a working one, eventually just back up your saves through a flash drive.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing is, that's it's such a goofy problem that we have in this day and age that, I mean, don't even get me started on Microsoft's Arcane DRM that I bought my new Xbox, and it turns out that you actually have to transfer the licenses and then re-download everything that you want to run on it. It's silly, but I mean, that applying to saves is ridiculous.
Sorry.
No,
I was just saying, I have a 360 since 2007 or so. Still didn't die on me. I'm shocked.
Yeah, I mean, I was keeping my PlayStation 3 well vented. I'm probably, when my friends all know that I am the most anal retentive person when it comes to my games and my DVDs and my computer. I make sure that everything's in pristine condition, and then something like this happens, and then the way I'm treated, it really makes me no longer want to buy the product. And I'm not saying that to create a coup. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here a Glenn Beck of anti-PlayStation 3 or something like that.
You're just recounting your personal experience.
Yeah, and this is what I'm going through right now. And I think if they had given me a Slim, if they had just said, sure, here's the offer, here's your Slim, we're sorry, I would have been it sucks that I lost my game saves, it sucks that I have to buy a PS2, but here's the thing, I could have saved the game saves if I had been up on backing up my files, and now I have a PlayStation 3 Slim, that's cool, and now I have to go out and buy a PS2. All right, that's bad, but I could at least accept it. The fact that Sony is not willing to even meet me with an offer that they originally made is BS. And I think that that's completely out of line. So, all right, I think we should go ahead and wrap it up because I'm getting kind of tired here and we've gone really long. So if you listen to the end of the segment, I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to Random Encounter. For Neal, for Zach, for Dennis, this is Rob signing off. Talk to you guys soon.